when your HOMA-IR is too high, and I've even seen carnivore keto people with too high of a HOMA-IR, they're not eating too many carbohydrates, but they're eating too much in general.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to get to chat with Maria Emmerich today. She is an icon in the health space, has devoted her life to helping other people get their health turned around, and is such a passionate and interesting person. We were just talking about, I had to check in and say, where are you recording from? But anyhow, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. Maria, give people a summary of what you've been up to and what your work is about and what you're doing these days.
Well, first of all, thank you for reaching out. And I'm glad that today worked, because it was like, hey, it's serendipity. I was like, well, I'm going to be traveling, but I'm home now. And you're like, yes, let's do it. So thank you for your flexibility on a Saturday. But I don't know, long story short, I had my 26th keto anniversary in March. So it's been 26 years. I think the reason that it works so well for me is because everybody thought I couldn't do it. Because the keto was not popular that long ago, right? I mean, nobody knew who it was. They were like, you're not eating any grains? Like, that's when we were all, like, I went to college for nutrition and exercise physiology. So the fact that, nutrition without grains or without fruit, like, what? And I was like, well, fruit is nature's candy. That's what it was meant to be. It was meant to fatten us up for a long winter, but to them, Weight Watchers says it's a free food, right? So it was just kind of like different information. But I was diagnosed with a bunch of illnesses when I was 16. I was diagnosed with PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. I was told I could never have my own children. I was also given an acid blocker at that doctor's visit. I was given something for IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome. I was also given an antidepressant because I was pretty depressed at the time. And I was like, I have these prescriptions in my hand. I'm like, what the heck? I'm 16 years old. Like, I don't want to take these drugs, right? And as fate had it, I took my beautiful golden retriever, who her name was Tiva, to the vet. And at that veterinarian visit, the first question they asked me was, what are you feeding her? Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa, nobody asked me what I was eating. And they're like, no, if you feed her like the raw food diet for dogs, her hair will come back. And so I was like, whoa, okay. So I changed her. We did it like together. We were like diet buddies, and her hair grew back right away. And for me, I was twice my size at the time, and I didn't lose weight right away, but my depression went away right away. Like, I felt so much happier. My IBS went away right away, and my acid reflux went away right away. So like those three things, I was like, whoa, I feel so much better. Like, it was hard to even eat sometimes because it was always like coming back up. And with the PCOS, whenever I work with women who have that, I tell them, well, it wasn't an overnight process to happen. It's not going to be an overnight process to fix, but you're on the right path, because there wasn't the internet back then. But, when you look into what causes PCOS, is excess caffeine, sugar, and carbohydrates. And at the time, I worked at a coffee shop where I would make the scones and the muffins and the cinnamon rolls before I would go to high school. So I'd get there at like 5 a.m. and start baking. And then after school, I would go back to finish working and close up the coffee shop, and whatever didn't sell, I got to go home with Emily. So I was making extra cinnamon rolls so I'd have dinner. So I really had to change like what I was eating. But that's, long story short, it's not short, but that's how I got started.
Well, you've always been drawn to the natural path and the natural way. And so when you saw, like, my dog can be fixed with raw, whole foods, and I'm going to go on this path, like, there was something that always drew you to, like, not the pharma, not the stuff, that was like, okay, food is the answer. And you figured that out very early in your life.
Well, those prescriptions are expensive, so like money was also kind of a driver. And the same with the food diet with my dog. Like, buying the expensive dog food was not an option for me. Like, I could not afford that. And so looking into what should she eat anyway, it's raw food. And I'm a bow hunter. So like hunting a deer and giving her the scraps, like, was like a win-win. So And that's the thing when people are like, oh, it's too expensive. You don't have to buy the expensive dog food. You don't have to buy the expensive stuff. Just you're eliminating all the junk and you'll probably end up saving money,
Absolutely. Wow. Okay. And I'm just like, there's a couple things you're saying. You're going to say so many things. I'm just going to have to repeat them because you're quick and I'm slow. And so when you say the cause of PCOS, you just said say that one more time, what you just said.
Sugar, carbohydrates, same thing.
Yeah.
Caffeine.
Okay.
Nobody wants to admit that, but it does increase androgens.
Yeah.
And it's the too high of androgens that, you don't want in a female body. Excess, so caffeine, sugar, and carbohydrates. So when I say sugar, I also mean carbohydrates.
Absolutely. And this is, when I look at our youth right now, so you were diagnosed with this quite young. But I'm seeing this diagnosis in our, members and in people that I work with, earlier and earlier, this PCOS diagnosis. And so, and sugar and carbs, just those things alone made tremendous difference for you.
Right. I mean, and working at a coffee shop, I had access to caffeine, but now there's Red Bull and all these other, caffeinated sources that it's like they're bombarded and they think that they can't live without it. So it was the hardest thing for me to cut, and I didn't take it seriously until I was in my early 30s. But I haven't had caffeine for, over 10 years now, and it was the best decision I ever made because how you'd have one too many cups of coffee and you felt like a rubber band about to snap? Like, it was just like, I remember feeling that one too many times. And like right now I have more energy than I've ever had before. I sleep so much better. I don't know. It was totally worth it. And I don't know. I don't want to be addicted.
Topic, from a practical note, I have to throw out, because obviously, okay, so I have mostly carnivore audience. I'm carnivore, and for some reason, coffee is still part of most of our lives.
It's a bean, man. Like I get into like what is so bad about coffee because people like you'll hear, oh, coffee's good for this. It's just because they're addicted to it, right? Coffee is the most mold containing product out there. So it's filled with mold, which we all have mold toxicity, and it's not a good thing to have. It makes your teeth brown. Everybody's like, why are your teeth so white? I was like, I don't drink wine, coffee, tea, none of that crap. It also increases blood pressure. It increases your blood sugar on average about 8%. And so that's why when you start drinking the coffee, your hunger might go away at first. And that's right. People like that. Like, oh, it takes my hunger away. But what goes up must come down. And so your hunger is going to be more intense later on in the day. And it also, more than anything, everybody listen up. Coffee makes you less insulin sensitive, which is exactly opposite of what you want, especially as women, as we age and we have lower estrogen and progesterone, already insulin resistant. Like that just automatically makes us more insulin resistant. So then you add coffee on top of that, you're just recipe for disaster.
I hear you. And what do you say to folks that are on the decaf road that's there? They still wanted that flavor. What do you have to say about that?
Decaf's made with a chlorinated filtration process, and chlorine's really bad for your liver as well as your thyroid. So you're not doing yourself
you just go drink the pool water if you're going to go on that road, right?
I know, right? So yeah.
I love it. I love it. So this, I mean, you've worked with people from all different ages, you specialize with kids nutrition, teenage nutrition, all this. Let's break that down a little bit. So for our parents and our families, for, ages 0 to 12, and then maybe the adolescence, like, do you have some things that really stand out for you for those two phases?
It's more about getting the parents' mind different, because the kids, 0 to 12, they don't have a car. They don't have any money.
Yep.
They're eating what you bring.
Yes.
So it's more about, I think that sometimes the parents want it, so that's why they buy it, right? And they're like, oh, they're just kids. Let them be kids, this and that. But letting them be kids gets them to be age 18 or 16, like I was, with all these metabolic issues. And you expect them to not be a sugar addict. And it's like, it's just inevitable. When they grow up on something, they're going to get addicted to that sugar. We've seen what it happens to the brain, that dopamine rise. It is an addiction, and it's hard to change your habits. Now, my friends that are in their 40s are like, oh, help Maria, like, I was on the swim team with them and all that. Like they would go to Tasty Treat, which was the ice cream shop after swim practice. And I just knew at that young age, I can't go. I'd be too tempted. I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to go hang out with my dog. No, I'm just kidding. But I just knew I couldn't do that. And so I changed my habits at a very young age, where they're now in their 40s and they're having all these metabolic issues. And changing your habits of 40 years is much harder than changing when you're a teenager or a child. So, like starting with the basics, I'm lucky enough, and happy Mother's Day to you tomorrow, but
Oh, you too.
I'm lucky enough to have 2 adopted children. And when they came into our house, their diet 100% switched. So when people are like, I can't switch my kids' diet, there was no question when they came into my house, they were going to eat what we eat, and they did. Kai he was only 1 year old, so solid foods were somewhat new to him, just because the Ethiopian diet was quite different. But he had I had a dear friend pump breast milk for us.
Oh,
Yeah, you can buy breast milk if you want to, but yeah, that's the best gift ever. Thank you, Rebecca. And then we did bone marrow. Bone marrow is like a savory jello for children. It's perfect. Or for adults too, right? And we would do bone broth. I have videos of him just laughing and begging for bone broth because he just loved it so much. And his palate to this day is very savory. He doesn't care for the sweet stuff. So you are in charge as parents, how their palates are going to be developed. But whatever we ate, so if it was salmon, it was, just crumbly pieces of salmon, or even pureed, depending on how his palate was doing, how he could chew. But I love hamburger, and so just making his hamburger, and we still did the spices and stuff and he loves spice and he loves flavor. And I think we're just so afraid of these babies, that they need to eat these baby foods out of these plastic, these little jars. It's just sugar. And so, yeah, no, he was basically a carnivore at a very young age. And I didn't make him be a carnivore, but the thing is, Emily, they didn't like vegetables. And so I was, as a mother, like, oh no, my kids don't like vegetables, this and that. But the more I learned about vegetables, like, oh, that's okay. I don't have to waste my money or time, having vegetables around. But I don't know. I think more than anything, it's just, you are in charge as a parent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what do you tell people that have the teenagers like me? So I have a 10-year-old, and then I have ages 17 through 20. I have 3 that are kind of in that young adult.
Aren't you 24?
Yeah, I have 4 children.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Well, they're not all children. I kind of have 1 child and 3 young adults. And so, because mine are kind of venturing out into that. And what I've noticed with my young adults is that they don't feel good when they eat the other stuff. And they do have jobs and they do have money. So they've started bringing some things home. And so that has been an interesting, like Jif peanut butter showed up in my house. I was like, what? What is this doing here?
But that's where the education comes into play, not just at that age, even younger, teaching them because there was times that, my kids go to birthday parties or whatever, and they come home sick. And then you use that, don't get angry, just use it as a teaching tool to be like, this food makes you, because they like to be the fastest, the strongest, the best football player, what foods will make you be that? And what foods are not going to make you your best, that also are going to make you maybe a little moodier. They're going to make your stomach hurt. Like, they're very aware of what food makes them feel better and what food makes them feel worse. But we also talked about what's in the peanut butter, like not just peanut butter in general, but Jif peanut butter is a whole other level, right?
It's a whole other story. Exactly. Yes. We're on the precipice of a lot of those conversations. And I think you're right, like tying into their motivation, trying to remember what are the things that motivate them. And so what do you think for girls coming into their cycles and coming into all of this, like what are the foundations that you would really focus on for them? I mean, I think we've kind of touched on it, but just to kind of, for that.
It's so interesting how this day and age, PMS is a real problem. And it's debilitating for some girls, where they don't go to school, they have migraines, they have cramps so bad that they just can't function. That's not the way it should be. That's not normal. And I think that's become the normal. So they think that's okay. And it's really not. And nutrition has a huge part on how your cycle either knocks you down
Yep.
or builds you up. So like, I
Mm.
think just teaching them like, okay, if we, modify the diet a bit, you are not, who wants to get rid of migraines? Like everybody does, right? Or like the painful cramps. And it shouldn't be lasting like 7 days of heaviness. That's a definite estrogen dominant state. So like just teaching about what causes estrogen dominance. And it's not just food. We're
Mhm.
living in a world of, lotions and potions and makeup and all of this girl stuff in particular that's causing estrogen dominance, these scents that they're putting all over them. And that was something that I noticed on the carnivore show, that nobody had those scents that would like, oh, because I'm really sensitive to that. I'd rather have the
Right.
food smell, right? But those are all causing estrogen dominance. So like when people are like, they have, thyroid, breast, uterine cancer, a lot, that's all estrogen dominant cancers, even prostate cancer in men. And so not just looking at the food that causes that, alcohol causes that, but all of the environmental factors that are, even like tampons and deodorants and all of this stuff can really affect this estrogen dominant state. I know I sound crazy, but the science has proven that. They even tested teenage girls using MAC makeup. They eliminated the makeup for 3 days. And the toxic estrogen, because we have 3 different types of estrogen as women. One we make only when we're pregnant. One is the healthy estrogen from our ovaries. That's the one we want. And then there's the third toxic estrogen. That's what we get, that big belly fat that we don't like, or the toxic estrogenic cancers. That's the kind we don't want. Okay. When they eliminated the MAC makeup for 3 days, the toxic estrogen went down by 78%.
What kind of makeup did you use?
MAC makeup, MAC, MAC, like at like Target,
Oh, a particular brand.
Yeah.
Okay. By 70% reduction in the toxic estrogen just by taking that out. Yeah. So I did notice that you are very cautious about beauty products and you are careful. And so what can people look for in their beauty products to get rid of those toxic estrogens?
Yeah, there's a really great website. It's called, oh gosh, now it's ewc.gov. And
Okay.
it's like, there's nobody's behind this website when it comes to like their special interest, Yeah, ewc.gov or I can't remember at the moment, but you can type in everything you use, from your shampoo to toothpaste to sunscreen to any type of lotion, hair products, you name it, and it will give you a number 1 through 10, and you want to be on the lower end. Anything below 3 is the good. But like I used to love Aveda. Do you know Aveda?
I remember that from a long time ago. Yeah.
So long time ago, it used to be very natural, and then they sold it to a massive company, and I loved their Aveda curly products and stuff, and now it's scoring like at an 8, and it's just, so you always have to be kind of on the know and looking and that type of stuff. But everything you put on your skin, and this is the thing people don't realize, we're so concerned about what we put in our mouth, but everything you put on your skin is also going into your bloodstream. To my point, I was doing a presentation about 20 years ago, and a woman stood up and she said, okay, Maria, I have to tell you a story.
Mm-hmm.
She said, my 3-year-old walked into the room and acted like she was drunker than a skunk. And we're like, what's going on with her? Like, she was super drunk. And then we went into her bedroom and she had hand sanitizer. She put it everywhere on her body, causing her to get loaded.
Alcohol. So the alcohol absorbed through the body and actually had like a toxic effect on her. I used to have a guideline, and I'm soft on it now, but I was like, well, if I can't eat it, I don't want to put it on my skin.
But they make such good skin products now, like the tallow-based ones, and
yes.
Especially like my children have very sensitive skin, and so that's what they like for sure.
Oh, that is amazing. Okay, so just so many things is exciting. I love what you're saying about for the young women is just paying attention to obviously the food, everything that's coming in, but their entire environment that they're doing, and just paying attention for that. What do you have? I know it's going to be very similar concepts, but as women are having hormone changes, as they're transitioning, out to the other side of that 40s and 50s, this is most of people that are actually starting to pay attention. Like you said, they've been in a bad spot until they get to 40, and then it's all falling apart. And this restoration, there's going to be some similar themes about obviously anything that goes on your skin, anything that goes in your body. What are some things in this age group that are really foundational for them getting their head wrapped around changing the tide on their health?
I think that that's the main clientele I work with are women and, menopause or post-menopause. And the biggest thing that always sticks out is their sleep. And that the reason is when your body's no longer producing estrogen and progesterone, your sleep is going to suck. A lot of times you can fall asleep, but you wake up at 2 or 3 a.m. like, bing, I'm totally awake. And there's some natural supplements you can take to help you get that progesterone back so you sleep. It also causes a lot of anxiety. So like you worry about stuff that you never would have cared about in the past. And this is when like hormonal migraines, that's a, low progesterone type state. But more than anything, getting them to sleep is my priority in the beginning, because if you don't sleep, you look at carbohydrates differently than if you would have slept well. Like you want them so bad because you want that sugar rush. Why? Because if you aren't sleeping at least 8 hours, your blood sugar is naturally going to be higher than it would be if you slept well. And so when that blood sugar is not, sitting at a right level, then you're going to crave sugar like you would, not like if you were slept well. So saying no to certain foods, but even if you were a carnivore and you were able to say no, you're probably going to eat too much. And say what you will, calories do matter, but like you usually eat. And I see that in myself. If I'm at a party or wedding, I'm always up early because I'm a morning bird, right? So if I don't get good sleep, I'm so much hungrier the next day. Like just trust yourself. You'll probably notice that. So even if you do stay on the path, your hunger is just in overdrive.
That's amazing. And so the hunger, and that's because I was going to ask you about hunger and, what have you learned through your decades and decades of, what are the big factors that are coming in here, but sleep, I'm hearing
is one. Caffeine, again, that's going to affect your blood sugar. That's going to affect hunger. And exercise is going to do that. Why? Because exercise is going to increase your blood sugar. Is that a bad thing? No, but being aware that when you stop your exercise, sometimes that hunger is going to be driven harder. It doesn't mean that it's an all excuse to, you can never out-eat a bad, you can't outrun a bad diet. That's what I'm trying to say. So just being aware, like maybe you're better at doing yoga or something gentle at first until you get your hunger under control with, getting good sleep and that type of stuff. But sleep is a huge one. Coffee is a huge one. Exercise. But blood sugar is not either, because you could drink tequila or alcohol in general, and that's going to be your lowest blood sugar. Doesn't mean it's a good thing, right? It just means it's oxidative priority and your body is prioritizing burning the alcohol first because it's toxic.
I always have this thing that I think the hormones always win. And so hunger is affected by a lot of different hormones in the background, right? Yeah. And
too much progesterone, which is a thing too, that would cause more hunger too.
Okay, nice. Man, it's so
that's why your hunger changes with your cycle.
Right. Of course. And do you see that nutritional needs will change with the cycle too then? Do you see a flux in that? Or do you feel like, whatever you're aiming for, that should kind of stay constant throughout that time?
It depends on what works for you.
Yeah.
With your cycle, there's certain times to do strength training versus cardio versus, like that type of stuff. When you can handle more pain per se, that's a real thing. And also like when maybe intermittent fasting is easier than other times. So it's more about that. I still recommend the same macros, but maybe like how you structure your day is going to look differently throughout the month.
Nice. And so you still have folks that will play with a little bit of a time restricted eating window, something like that, depending on cycles, that can be a useful tool to have in there at some points.
Yeah, I love shortening the window. I mean, my kids do it naturally. Like yesterday, I don't think my kid ate until 2 p.m., but he just wasn't hungry till then. And as a mother, you're like, oh, are you hungry yet? And no, but it's just interesting because it's a great way to heal other parts of your body. But I do feel that, getting in your protein at least every day is important. So.
Right. But playing with that time where you're giving some windows in there in that fasting window can be very effective. That's really cool to hear, because I wasn't sure, where you stood with that. So I think that having some variety in the times according with your cycle, according with your hormones, that can be something that, can really help people. What are you seeing lately in just the trends in the health space? I mean, obviously carnivore space we're really interested in. What are some trends that you think are really helpful that people are learning about? And are there some that are, causing a lot of confusion?
Well, I just got back from Bali.
Yes.
And whenever someone asked what I did, I would say, I'm a nutritionist. They're like, oh, vegan. I was like, no, not vegan. Vegan's very popular there. And I find like that misinformation is huge. And so I would just start talking and they're like, oh, I like meat. I was like, eat meat, So just tell them the misinformation and that's the thing. We just need to slowly be the change that needs to happen. But sadly, the vegan community is growing. I think they're very loud. And maybe I'm not, like, I'd rather be hanging out in the woods than speaking at somebody for what they're eating. But it was very popular there. So that was kind of disheartening. And it was very hard to eat carnivore.
Wondering.
Because they have a lot of vegan menus, but they don't have, a lot of meat restaurants. It's like, where's the steak?
Right. Okay. So I do want to I'm sure most people know about this activity that you have, these trips that you're doing. How did you start doing that? How did that come together? This sounds like such an incredible serendipity passion kind of project, and something I'm so like, I want to learn how to do this. What's the story about how that developed in your life?
I can't remember how many years it was ago. I got the message from Facebook like, hey, ciao, Maria, you're so beautiful. You need to take people on a keto trip to Italy. And I was like, Craig, this lady asked me to, I grew up poor. I never thought I'd ever see Europe, right? So I was like, this lady asked me to do keto trips to Italy. And he's like, give her your phone number, see what happens. And so I gave her my phone number. We talked the next day, and within 3 months, she had a trip planned. We all went to Italy together. So I'm just kind of like the guest host per se. Yeah. And she's like, so where should we go next? And so I go to Italy next week, and then, in 4 days or whatever. And then we go to Croatia in September. I have a trip to South Africa in November, Morocco next year. Like, there's so many trips. And after she reached out, 2 other companies reach out, and I say yes to everything. So there's different companies with all those trips, but Juliana, the lady from Italy, her trips are the best.
Oh, and she's still at it. She just kind of came to you and said, you're going to do this. You're like, why would I say no to that?
Yeah, they all kind of came to me, and I just, of course I would say yes. So, and then it's fun because I get to pick where we go, but it's so funny because I plan everybody else's life, with work and my family, that I usually don't like to know the itinerary. So like in Bali, I just showed up and they're like, we're going to go surfing today. I'm like, awesome. So it's just,
wow. So you just kind of guard the food. Like, do you know ahead of time the restaurants and things like that? Or
well, yeah, with Juliana, she's the Italian woman, her trips, she's ketovore. So I trust her judgment 100%. Like, I've never been let down with hers. However, the bigger company that took us to Bali, I was like, okay, I need to know the restaurant. What's the meal plan? Because we even did like a cooking instruction. We had like a cooking class. And so I was kind of like, well, I can't do X, Y, and Z, but we can do this, this, and this. And so that's kind of what I'm in charge of. But everything else, I just show up and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's an elephant safari, like, this is cool, So
yeah.
I like being surprised.
Oh, when I travel, I bring my loot with me now. So I haven't done too many trips, but I've got carnivore bars, carnivore crisps, like I've got jerky that I've made. Do you do that too? Did you kind of bring some stuff with you, or how do you handle the travel as eating keto carnivore?
Well, to get there took 36 hours.
Wow.
So yeah, I definitely packed quite a bit of food. Have you tried the Equip protein powder?
The plain. Yeah, I've just tried the plain. Yeah.
From beef. It's made from beef protein.
Yep. It's 100% beef. Yep.
Yeah, like I always have that in my my carry-on, because at least I can just make a quick shake with that. And
You just
like,
mix it with water and shake it around, or?
well, you can. It's kind of a technique because it doesn't have the binders that a lot of protein
That
have, so it's going to clump up. But so I'll get asked for like hot water,
Okay.
and so like I mix it like a little bit in hot water just to like get the clumps gone, and then you slowly add the cold water to it. And it's kind of a technique, but that's what, that's kind of like my go-to. But I always have jerky. Gosh, there's so many things that I pack with. And I love my sauces, right, on the carnivore show. So I'll even like bring some sauces with me, and there's always a fridge in the room. Or not. Vito and Aubrey, there are two people that came on they came to my Greece trip and this last Bali trip, and they made my wraps that are made with water, gelatin, and dried egg whites.
Yep.
And so we were making sandwiches with those, and it was cool to have people of like-minded with you. But there's also people that didn't know what keto was. They didn't know what carnivore was.
On the retreat, that were guests on your retreat?
And they just wanted to learn more.
Oh.
And like, they came with a friend, right? And they're like, okay, Maria, I'm coming on your trip in a year from now, and I'm going to be half my size. And I was like, all right, let's do it. So just helping them along the way. We're on a group chat. And have you ever been to summer camp?
Yeah.
You know how close you get in a week, right? Like when you travel with somebody, you get to be like very intimate and learn a lot about each other. And it was very emotional sometimes. And it was I just love, I don't know anybody who's coming, and it's just, they just show up, and before you know it, you're fast friends. So.
I agree completely. Yeah. I've been involved with Rebecca Heischman runs these retreats. And so that feels like summer camp.
Yeah.
You're going to be at the fall one. Yes.
She said which dates work for you, because she knew I travel a lot. And I told her, she's like, okay, these are it. And I was like, all right.
Yes, I thought so. So that is when are the dates for that?
October, I want to say 12th.
Okay.
October, when the colors are beautiful, she said. So
Middle of October. Is this one going to be in Tennessee again? Okay. Oh, they are so fun. And you get to form these bonds. And I'm there. She's actually having one right now. Dr. Kiltz is there, Lisa, and Ribeye Rach, Dr. Weideman's there. And so she does them in the spring and fall. And yeah, I highly recommend these. I mean, I've heard that Charles might start doing something like this down the road in Costa Rica, carnivore retreats. And so I know Bronson Dante's doing these. And so, yeah, I think the more people that are kind of having these kind of immersive experiences. And what was great for me, the ones that I've gone to so far, is you pay one thing and it's pretty much everything's covered. And I know there's going to be carnivore food for me to eat. I know that I'm going to be like safe,
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me some feedback about Reversed. How did that feel for you? What things were, challenging, and what were your feedback? You've done 2 seasons of Reverse so far, and how were those seasons different?
I cooked a lot.
Yes. Oh my gosh. On both? On the keto one, did you do that?
Yeah. Okay. On the keto one, I did that, and I kind of thought it was going to be different, but it wasn't. And so I'm just to be honest, I was sad I wasn't in the show. I was the cook. I was the free chef.
For the keto?
No, for the carnivore show.
Oh, okay. We'll see. Well, it's going to be interesting to see when it's released.
I know.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I was cooking. So it was like, I didn't get to visit with everybody because, all of a sudden the dancers were coming and they needed deviled eggs for them or this and that. And it's a labor of love. Like, I love to cook, but I also wanted to talk to everybody, and I didn't get a chance to do that. So that's, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's just how I'm an open book. That's how I felt about it.
I love it. No, I love it. Absolutely. And so, I had we each had our own little experience with how that all played out. I did notice that I was excited as I saw you involved in more and more of the conversations. And so, but I know you're right. There was never, they were segmented. We'd have a lot of things that were very exercise focused, a lot of things that were very, had these like different segmented things.
This is how I feel though. This is how I feel. You can tell someone all day long why they should eat some way, but until you teach them how to cook delicious food, they're not going to do it.
Oh, I love it.
the largest growing TV shows right now are food shows. People
Yes.
love to watch people cook. So why not do some cooking segments? Because people want, and people think carnivore is boring and it's just steak and eggs, and it's not. Like I can show you how to make some really delicious things. And I think that that's a missed opportunity.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm excited in just to see how more and more of that develops. But I think you're right. I think as people are getting their YouTubes out, as people are getting their things out, if you can see the practical skills that aren't that tricky. And I loved watching you as you were doing these. I was like, okay, you were still like thinking and processing. Cooking is such a creative process, right?
It really is. And like, we didn't have a lot of ingredients that I'm used to, or safe, I should say. Like things that I know would be clean and safe in my home. I don't know what the store in Costa Rica has and what's in that. So I wanted to make sure everything was nice and safe, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was, I think that how everything came together was, we were hungry. I was like, get people taken care of now.
Yeah, I know. And that's another thing too. They're like, oh, don't make so much. I'm like, do you know how much we can eat? We can throw down a lot of food, right? Like, so I think they realized towards the end, like, okay, just do your thing.
Learning, right? Like a massive learning for everyone. Absolutely. But
Because I made the carnivore lasagna. Did you get to try the carnivore lasagna?
I am so sad. That was the first night, right?
Yeah. Because I wanted to make extra, because lasagna is great leftover. It really is. And Dr. Barry wasn't there, and he loves my lasagna. He tried my regular one. And so I wanted to make sure he had some carnivore lasagna. I wanted to make extra. And they're like, no leftovers. I guess
you're gonna love the retreats because Rebecca gets oodles and oodles of food from Billy Doe Meats. And okay, so her husband was a Navy cook. And so he's used to cooking for hundreds. And Tyler is in the kitchen and he storms around. You're just gonna love seeing him in action.
Can I play with him?
Yes, it's the best. It's the best. And they live off of leftovers too. And so as a carnivore, what's so amazing at her retreats is that there's always meat in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can have pretty robust appetites, just depending on all the different things that are happening.
Traveling and not sleeping well. And yeah.
Absolutely. So I've been to, I think 3 of them by now, or 2. But I familiarize myself. There's kind of like a leftover fridge. And so I hunt out the leftover fridge, and there's always like some lamb in there, like some hollandaise that can kind of be heated.
You're talking to me now with the sauces, right? Well, that was the thing. In Bali, I asked the hotel I was staying at, I said, do you know where I can find crispy duck? Because crispy duck is very common in Bali. It's one of the carnivore foods that I love, and they don't use seed oils. So I wasn't worried about what they were frying it in. They use coconut oil, but that's very common for them. I don't have a problem with coconut oil. They basically deep fry a duck in coconut oil.
Wow.
So I was like, where can I get crispy duck? And they're like, well, what day do you want it? I was like, well, I want it for lunch and dinner. Where can I get it? He's like, I'll make it for you. He's like, you want it for lunch and dinner? I was like, well, yeah. So for lunch comes, and it's a huge duck, like a whole duck with the head on, the neck, the face, all of it. And I was like, I probably don't need another one for dinner, but it was so good and like delicious. And yeah, I mean, I'll use coconut oil over seed oils any day, right?
Yeah, no kidding. If you're going to choose I think that's a great choice. Absolutely.
But they didn't have like duck fat to use, I guess. So bummer.
What are some of the constants? I know we're talking about like the vegan movement and how sad that has been. What are just some of the foundations and the constants that you're hoping are here to stay?
I think people are always wanting to find out the truth and what's really going to work.
Yes.
And some people will never give up. Some people sadly have given up because nothing has worked, but this is something that really does. And, but not just for, like weight loss, but for like eating disorders and different things like that. Cause I work with a lot of men and women that have gone to rehab for eating disorders, and they don't let you have a scary food. They make you eat your scary food, which to me causes more anxiety. it causes more eating disorders because you're just like overthinking everything and being afraid of that food that they're forcing you to eat. And you're not allowed to cut out any food groups. So you can't be a carnivore under like an eating disorder clinic. But when I see these people blossom and do so well and feel so much better, the anxiety goes away. And yeah, like it's a safe food because it's most nutritious. It doesn't have the anti-nutrients in it. It makes you happy, your skin great. Like it's a win-win. So I guess that's something that I would wish more to grow.
I agree completely. And I'm seeing it. It depends on state to state what the regulations are as far as how they can, cross these lines between therapeutic protocols. And, but I'm seeing at KetoCon, I met somebody that is able to use this in his clinic, as in he has a mental health clinic. And they're able to combine, including animal foods in this. And I met somebody that is running adult family homes for Alzheimer's, and they are so successful. They're able to work it out where they can feed them.
Using my recipes.
What's that?
He's using my recipes. I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's amazing. Yeah. And so they're having such actual transformations in their clientele that a lot of them are going back home and are able to live independently again.
And that just, we need to have those people spread the word, because like word of mouth I never once spent a dime on advertising. It's word of mouth. That's what really grows, I feel.
Yes. No, I do. It's people's transformations and having these things, and then they just tell somebody and then spread. But then we have the studies, when people need the studies, they're there. So those are growing and growing. I mean, that will just continue. You mentioned, eating disorders and underweight, and I have seen that so much. I have a lot of clients that come to me that need to gain weight, and that carnivore and, getting them to be able to digest fats correctly, that has been a huge transition for their health in that direction. And that's something that you're seeing as well.
Absolutely. I mean, talking about Rebecca Farmer, like her transformation is so inspiring and so beautiful, and it's changed her in so many ways. And that's just one of the powerful benefits of carnivore, for sure.
Absolutely. How do you help people in like the body image journey on either end of the spectrum? Like, what have you found to be the most grounding to kind of heal how they think of themselves and how they see themselves, see their body?
Gaining strength is huge. Like, I think that's step number one. There's so many different pieces to this puzzle, but first of all, like commending yourself for eating real food. Nobody should be ashamed of eating too much ribeye, like, what I'm saying? Like, you're not eating McDonald's and all that type of stuff. But when you, I work with exercise a lot with people, and when you can see yourself, and it seems kind of vain, but when you lift weights and you watch yourself in the mirror get stronger weekly, that's a huge piece. Because I did work with a lot of like different hospitals that work with depression, anxiety, different mental disorders that way. And seeing yourself get stronger, it could be your same body shape, but seeing yourself get stronger is very powerful to the way you see yourself. Does that make sense?
I love it. I love it. In my own little world and journey, when we were coming up on reversed, I was like, well, I'm going to see if I can pump up my workout stuff. And so that was my little short-term motivation. I need to find my motivation again. And so my husband and I joined CrossFit. And we started doing stuff with, weights and whatever. And it was like, wow, my size was the same, but my shape was so different.
Yeah. And that's huge when people are just using the scale for their results. It's very skewed. Muscle is so important. And it's just, I wish people would see exercise more for mental health rather than weight loss, because food is more important for that and stuff. But I think exercise is huge when it comes to how you see yourself, how you are proud of yourself. It can take a really bad day to a really great day, and do things that you like. If you don't like to run, don't run. I hated running, like do stuff you like Zumba. I mean, they have they dance or whatever you like to do, but something where you are getting there's no better workout than surfing. That's hard work, but do something that you really enjoy, that it can be a lifestyle,
That's amazing. And that I haven't heard anybody emphasize that for body image as much as you have.
No.
But yeah, just tying those things together, then that's watching that strength develop, and just for the mental components as well.
For sure.
That's phenomenal. Okay, I have some random questions that I wrote down.
Okay.
Okay, so and this is kind of technical, but you're so technical, so I knew you could do it. Okay, as we're talking about these different fat burning, sugar burning, things like this, as we talk about like a gluconeogenesis and things like that, is it therapeutic sometimes to have that sort of metabolism? Is that ever helpful for certain processes?
To have what metabolism?
Like a gluconeogenesis, like can that be coming in and out? Can that be helpful for some reason?
That's what enables us to be keto and carnivore.
Nice.
So don't fear gluconeogenesis, because you need glucose for parts of your brain, your thyroid, certain things need that. So to be like, oh my gosh, my blood sugar went up 10 points because I ate too much protein. Chicken is never going to turn into chocolate cake. So let's just be clear about that. And again, like if we're just chasing blood sugar, if you want to lower your blood sugar, do some tequila with it. Does that sound smart? No, it does not. So stop chasing your blood sugar. I think those CGMs are overrated.
Oh my goodness. I did not know that that was your opinion. I love it. Okay. And because this is the question we get all the time. So have you also seen this phenomenon with people that are on carnivore diet, that they'll get a higher HbA1c? And have you seen that? And do you have a concern about that?
Yes, a lot of things are going to influence that, because we're not looking at how long your blood cells are living. So they're most likely living longer because you have good iron levels, you have good ferritin levels. People that have very short, little, I should say, a deficiency in iron, a deficiency in ferritin, their A1C will be falsely good, right?
Oh.
So someone that has a really good iron, good ferritin, it could look higher than normal. But what is higher? Like 5.3? Whoop-de-doo. That's not bad.
Gotcha.
It's not 11.
Yes, thank you.
Like if it's, in the 5s, but again, looking at how long your blood cells are living, which they're going to live longer when you're eating a healthy carnivore diet, it's probably going to be a higher number. Because like mine's 5.3 and I don't freak out about it. So
yeah, mine's been anywhere between 5.3 to 5.7. I think I saw it at 5.6 one time, but I think that you're saying that ferritin is actually really crucial, that you consider that when you're looking at the HbA1c together.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. What other markers are some of the most important markers that you're looking at when you're kind of saying, am I on the right track? Am I making progress? What are some of the technical markers that you like to see?
The one that's really important that nobody's doing is HOMA-IR. And I used to talk about this in my last presentation I would do at like KetoCon and stuff. And that's not just looking at your blood sugar, but it's also looking at your fasting insulin. So, and tying those numbers together, and being under 2 is important, because when your HOMA-IR is too high, and I've even seen carnivore keto people with too high of a HOMA-IR, they're not eating too many carbohydrates, but they're eating too much in general, because you're it's like over fueling your gas tank.
Yep.
With fuel. Too much fuel is bad in any case. So putting too much, fat in your body, like that's going to just make your HOMA-IR go too high.
Okay. And is there a general range for, if they're looking at just the fasted insulin by itself, or do you have to consider this other factor with it?
You want to consider the other factor with it.
Okay. Is that easy to explain how that works out, or is that kind of technical?
Well, it's the fasting blood sugar times the fasting insulin times, there's a whole times 2.40 or something like that. And then you're going to find out that number, and you want it to be under 2.
Okay.
But if you search HOMA-IR, you'll find out that number. And there's the first at-home insulin test, and I'm working with that company. So if you want to do it at home, this is the first one ever available, and they're really awesome. She's a doctor, and she knows a lot, because she when I gave my presentation, when I was the keynote at the symposium in New York City, she came up to me and she's like, "I'm here for you." And I was like, "Oh, this is cool." She's like, "I want you to like spread the word about this at-home test." And it's awesome. Like, it's very accurate. I've done both at the hospital and then at home, and it's the same.
Wow. And have you seen seen clients progression over time, and
Yes.
how long does that kind of get better, and what does that line up with that's working in their lives?
I would say when they first start working with you or anybody, do it right away and then test 3 months later, because that's the most, I don't care about the scale. Like if that number changes, that's the most important, because that means the fat cells are shrinking and you're probably gaining muscle if you're not, because that's what you want to change. Like the best thing to reverse insulin resistance is to shrink the fat cells and to gain muscle. And that's when, because it will give the glucose more places to go. And that's where you'll find success. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we're talking about food addiction a little bit back, and I know that there's kind of an individual situation between people. Actually, Rebecca just did a video on this about sweeteners and non-sweeteners and all this kind of stuff. Do you think that for some people, there's if they combine that sweet and fat together, whether it's from sugar or some other, sweetener, that there can be some issues with that? And then what's been your experience seeing that? Are there some people that just can't tolerate it, or how's that been for you?
Well, if anything tastes too good, it's easy to overeat. I mean,
Okay.
but if you're talking about like insulin and blood sugar, if you're using the sweeteners I approve of, it doesn't affect those at all.
Right.
So if that's an issue, or you're afraid of that, that's not an issue.
Right.
But the fact is, you can definitely overeat that. Like I love ice cream, whether it be keto or not.
Yes.
I can take out a whole tub of that. So it's hard to moderate that, right? So you just kind of know your limitations type of a thing. And I also know that, this whole, like you're familiar with Ozempic and all these peptides that people are injecting. They're made from amino acids, and amino acids come from protein. Protein is very effective on the GLP-1 in your intestine, where that signals you're satisfied, you're no longer hungry. So if you do want something sweet, I would say focus on protein first, because that's going to signal you to have that satisfaction and to stop eating, and then have a little bit if that's your thing. But the problem is when you see that, like when people are doing like fat bombs, or that's all that they're eating, then you're going to have an issue, especially with overeating that.
Gotcha. I see. And do you ever see that and add like the addiction component of that hit with those kinds of things, or is that just not something that?
Well, like the dopamine? No.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Stevia's never affected dopamine like that. No.
Interesting. Okay. Awesome.
No.
Okay. And so are your kids doing some cooking? Are they creating recipes? Have you come across anything that they've made up?
It's funny because I get kind of a lot of pushback, but they eat the way we do, like I'm not a short order cook, but they eat what we do. They're expensive kids. Like I think Micah had 3 steaks yesterday, but
yes.
But I have one that loves to be in the kitchen and looks for new flavors and that type of stuff. And one that, maybe he'll come around eventually, but he does like to cook though. Cause when he's like, can I have burgers? And I was like, can I make them in 10 minutes? He's like, can I do it? Like, I think he wants to cook, but he also wants to be like, he's 13. Like, I'm not cool right now.
Oh, of course. Yes. He's
So,
like, get out of the kitchen.
Since I do like cooking, he doesn't like cooking, right?
Oh my gosh. Does your husband cook much?
He's very good at it, but I really enjoy it. So I would much rather cook and he cleans up. So
Nice.
That's kind of the way. He's a very good cleaner, I should say, but he is very good at cooking too.
Yeah. Oh, wow. What has carnivore done for your, where have you guys been on the spectrum of carnivore? Have you gone to strict carnivore with no spices? Have you guys had to experiment with that just for your family's health journey, for the health journeys that have happened?
Well, Emily, I'm going to mail you my carnivore book, because that explains why we've done that. And that was 5 years ago now, 5 years ago. So, and why we've done that for Craig. So that's what, I don't expect everybody to know everything, but like some people are like, with Craig's autoimmune issues are like, have you done, meat only? I was like, yes, but it's not going to heal everything. Let's get that right. I want that to be clear. Like it's not, there's other things that are going on in the body but no, he's very, and we do it just because it's easier for him. But when I'm traveling, it's kind of like Sometimes I'm desperate, so if a little bit of veg falls on my plate, it might go in.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So we'll just wrap up with this question. Like, what are the big rocks for you? What are the foundations for you that make your life work?
Craig. My husband, Craig, and my husband, Craig. Husband, Craig, and Craig. Like, I could not do what I do without Craig. And I'm not just saying that, but it's absolutely true. Like, he holds everything together.
You are interdependent. Yeah.
And it's so funny because, like, when I was younger, I met him when I was 17, and my mom never thought I'd get married because I was very independent. I'm an introvert. I don't mind being alone. I never wanted to get married, but I met this dude and we homeschool the kids together. We share a computer. Like, we are always home together. Like, everybody's like, oh, how's it changed your life? I was like, I don't know. We're always at home anyway. Like, we're fine. But I couldn't do it with anybody better than him. He's the quiet, like, prince in this whole thing.
And you give him all of the accolades. That's a beautiful thing. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I hope I get to connect with you maybe this fall.
I didn't mean to be like, the whole carnivore thing, but I want to send you that book because I think it would really explain a lot. And, if anybody wants it, I'll donate a few copies if you want to do a giveaway, but it explains why we even journeyed into carnivore and how it has helped him, because it has helped so much, but it's not going to make it go away.
I love that. Absolutely. We need to be done with this conversation that this magic wand, it's a unicorn,
but it doesn't make it so much better. Like, let's just be, it makes his life manageable, the pain manageable and stuff like that. And I didn't mean to bite your head off. It was just, I'm so sensitive about him when it comes to that,
no, I think it's beautiful. And I want people to know that full story. And, I know it's out there too. I know that there's ways for people to kind of get that and hear about that and hear what has happened. But this magic pill philosophy, I'm sick of it too. And it's, it's not okay. So this is a healing protocol, an enhancement protocol that's going to probably turn things around and make this version of whatever you're doing a better version of it. Is going to bring a lot of life into this. Yeah.
Thanks, my friend. Thank you.
My goodness, of course. Oh, I love you. You're so precious. Absolutely. I just appreciate that we got this moment. It was so special to me. I appreciate your work. What's next? Like, what's coming up that you want people to know about in your life?
Well, the retreats are pretty awesome. You can come on one of those. We have a lot of places we're going to go, or where you would want me to do a trip. I'm open to listening to that too. But I also, I can't keep up with work. So I have the keto carnivore coaching certification. So if you want to, and some people just take it to transform their lives and their families' lives. But it's a whole course. And then once you are certified, I help you with your clients the whole time. So if you have a hard question, you just send me the question and I'll help you along with that. And it's a lot. You learn a lot.
They get access to your brain, your expertise, your decades of everything that you have, learned and are sharing with the world. And that, I think that's the best way to go, is exponential, right? Because when you train people from your knowledge base and your husband's knowledge base, you guys are a power couple together, the knowledge that comes from you, and then you help people educate, empower, support. Because
spread the word. For sure.
Yes. Beautiful. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm excited for the next adventures coming up for you. And this has been just an honor just to spend time with you. Thank you, Maria. You're so precious.
You must come on a trip sometime.
I'm going to, believe me. I will.
I'll see you in October.
Thank you, darling.